A chance to get everyone caught up on where we are with the trial. Nita Kay with us, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, also with us, criminal defense attorney Bernstein. Ladies, let's listen, because one of the points the defense is making here, and it's actually 6 points, about the 6 places of gross negligence, extreme deviation from the standard of care that led to Michael Jackson's death, delivered by the cardiologist, Dr. Alon Steinberg. He did it well, did it very powerfully, simply for the jury to understand. Let's get just some highlights of that, and we'll get your take on how's the defense going to overcome that. Here we go.
He gave propofol in an unmonitored setting. He gave propofol with a poor indication. He responded to the arrest inappropriately. He did not have an appropriate response to an emergency. He did not call 911 on time. If these deviations would not have happened, Mr. Jackson would have been alive.
There's that one last little tidbit for jurors to sink their teeth into, that Michael Jackson could be alive, even if Conrad Murray had called 911. Anita, let me start with you. Good to see you again. How powerful was that, those 6 points?
Oh, Mike, that was amazing, because any one of those 6 points could be enough for the prosecution. But you've just got one on top of another on top of another. So even if one juror thinks, well, maybe he was going to call 911. Okay, well, he shouldn't have been giving him propofol in the first place. I mean, it's a mountain. The 6 is a mountain. And you've got a doctor who, we know when we go to doctors, don't always explain things so easily for us to understand, sort of like attorneys. He laid it out so basic,
right,
so simple. All 12 jurors are going to get it.
Yeah, and BJ, to Anita's point, he was a very good teacher. I mean, he was on the edge of a seat. He was looking at the jury, laying it out there. So you're a defense attorney. How do you pick apart these 6 points? Do you just pick apart one of them? What's your attack strategy on this?
Well, that's why this week is going to be so important for the defense, because they have hired experts who are going to come in who have extremely good credentials as well. And then you're going to create the battle of the experts, so that if the defense works with their witness in such a way, as well as the state did, and I think Mike and you and I talked about a little bit last week about how the defense cross-examined and it was a little muddled. They need to get rid of the muddling and make sure it's 1, 2, 3, 4 to attack each and every point, because you're right, those are things that are going to sit with somebody for a while.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's why we go back to Dr. Steinberg, who was so powerful. He did such a good job, and he was welcoming the challenge from J. Michael Flanagan, the defense attorney, it seemed. I mean, he knew this material cold. Here, as we look at defense strategies, we're looking forward, and let's be honest here, we've only heard the prosecution side. Defense will be taking over in a matter of days. And HLNTV.com/Michael Jackson, my colleague Jane Velez-Mitchell lays out a very basic question, and that is, do jurors know how Michael Jackson died? Looking over my shoulder here at the website right now, HLNTV.com/Michael Jackson. Anita, I mean, that's a basic. Is it going to come down to that, where, yes, the prosecution has their theories, and they're basically saying, well, it does not matter because Murray set the table for his death regardless? Is that enough?
Exactly. Mike, I think it is enough, because when you're looking at involuntary manslaughter and the prosecution is using the theory of criminal negligence, you can, like the doctor said, look at 6 things. You can look at numerous things that Dr. Murray, who is an expert, not just a reasonable person like you and I are, he is an expert, and he should have never, ever been administering the propofol at a home setting without monitoring. Even with monitoring in a home setting to put someone to sleep is ridiculous. So you look at all the things he did, and regardless of the fact that he hadn't gotten paid yet, you know this was something that was going to be the highlight of his life, was to be Michael Jackson's private doctor and tour with him and go to London. There's so many motivations as to why Dr. Murray probably fell below the standard of care, and it's because he may have had stars in his eyes, thinking this is a whole new world for me.
That's what the prosecution's laid out.
And I think it's enough for the prosecution.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, guys, let's listen. This is Ed Chernoff with our colleague Ted Rollins. Just a quick exchange before the trial. And Chernoff, a little snarky here, so going back and forth about how all the propofol got into Michael Jackson's system. Let's listen to that.
There's no way that Dr. Murray would pump Michael Jackson full of propofol sufficient for major surgery and walk out that room. It's not going to happen. That's not the doctor Dr. Murray is.
How did it get in him?
Well, that's a good question. Ted, do you have any idea how it got in him?
All right, that's a back and forth, and I'm sure he's going to come with more in court, BJ. But, I mean, is that enough for the defense, just to come with that type a line of fire? That, hey, there's no way Dr. Murray would have done this? Or do they need more specifics to say this is why it's not the way the prosecution's telling you?
I think they're going to have some specifics, and that's why they're going to call the experts. You know, the one thing here about this case, which is so fascinating beyond Michael Jackson, is that throughout this country, every day, there are allegations of medical malpractice, civil lawsuits that resulted in the death of someone, and they are not criminally prosecuted. And if I am the defense, I'm going to have to try to remind them, yes, he may have deviated from the standard of care. Maybe he shouldn't be a doctor, but did it cross the line into criminality? Now, it's hard because this statute is a very, very vague, open-ended statute, and it really takes a prosecutor choosing to use this law against someone like this.
Got it.
But for doctors all over the country, the question becomes, is it going to change now from an epidemic of medical malpractice cases to more and more criminality?
Got it. Okay. Hey, guys, coming up, there's a chance, even if Murray's convicted, no jail time. We'll hit on that in just a little bit. But there's a tragedy to talk about. IndyCar race really spiraled out of control in the blink of an eye. It led to the death of one of the most popular drivers. Michael Jackson death trial, we're finding out court will resume on Wednesday. A couple reasons for the delay. Number one, prosecution's final witness, Dr. Stephen Schaefer, had a death in the family. Now we're finding out there's new evidence in the case. Toxicology report that the defense wants a day to look over so they can properly cross-examine Dr. Stephen Schaefer. So court again resuming on Wednesday, and we're going to be talking to Beth Karras about some of the findings in this new report coming up in just a bit. Could be very key to the case because it's dealing with the lorazepam tablets, whether or not Michael Jackson took those when Conrad Murray left the room. Here's something else we're finding out. Sources in California saying even if Conrad Murray is convicted of involuntary manslaughter and is sentenced to the maximum 4 years, he may serve no jail time. New law taking effect in California October 1st saying non-violent felonies or felons, if they're convicted, cannot go to state prison, meaning he's going to the Los Angeles County Jail. Then you look at that, and sources are saying, well, then he'll probably only get half that sentence, meaning 2 years. Then he could be eligible for house arrest. Two stipulations apply there. Prior criminal records. Murray does not have any priors. No criminal record. Number two, is he a threat to the community? Probably not, unless he's using propofol on somebody. Our own Nancy Grace talked about that. Let's listen.
Under California statute, he may not even get house arrest. Did you know that in California, like many jurisdictions, on involuntary manslaughter, the perpetrator can be sentenced to straight probation?
Let's get our experts weighing in on that. Again, Anita K., BJ Bernstein with us, both criminal defense attorneys. You think that could, okay, again, we're still, let's let everybody know, we still have to hear from the defense. He's not been convicted. But if no jail time, BJ, you think that's the way it could end up going down?
Absolutely, because with an involuntary manslaughter case, skip the high-profile ones. Any involuntary manslaughter means that the person didn't intend death to occur. And the truth is, we want to protect the world from the people who intend to. We have a lot of those. So when you have someone in this category, you want to have them convicted, perhaps, if they did something wrong. You don't want them, perhaps, practicing medicine. This would devastate. He already can't practice in California. It would devastate his career anywhere, and it would substantially affect his life. So it's not without punishment. Just the question becomes over and over, is incarceration really what's necessary to protect society?
Okay, Anita, with this being such a high-profile case, I think if he is convicted and gets the 4 years, I think he spends some time behind bars and doesn't go straight to house arrest. Your thoughts?
Well, sentencing technically is up to the judge. Obviously, both sides, if Dr. Murray's convicted, can argue one for the harsher and one for straight probation. I do think while he is eligible for straight probation, which is no jail time, no prison time, I think that's unlikely. I think there would be some type of incarceration. But things can be a combination plate, so to speak. There could be some local county jail time, then electronic monitoring, community service. So it could be a combination rather than just straight prison time.
Got it. Okay. You know that headline catches people's attention. If convicted, no jail time. We'll see. Long way down the road. But what is upon us now is new evidence in Los Angeles. We're going to be checking in with our colleague Beth Karras. Fresh out of the courtroom, we know trial's going to resume on Wednesday, and a new toxicology report that could play big in this case. Breaking news in the Michael Jackson death trial. We know now the court will not resume until Wednesday. One reason, the defense needs a day to look at a new toxicology report that really may take apart their theory. We're talking about the examination of Michael Jackson's stomach contents. We know the defense's theory is that Conrad Murray left the room at some point the night Michael Jackson died or into the early morning hours, and he grabbed 8 lorazepam tablets and also self-injected propofol, and that's what led to his death. BJ Bernstein and Pt.1 with us, our experts. BJ, this is bad news for the defense because that's a huge part of your theory is that Michael grabbed the tablets, self-injected. If you get the tablets out of there, what do you do? And what's going on with that defense team right now as they mull this over?
They are frantic. I mean, when I get evidence at trial that I wasn't expecting, particularly a scientific test, I'm going crazy trying to get ready for those days ahead. And I realized Beth Karras gave some information earlier saying, well, you know, it's because of what the defense did. But I want to remind everybody, the defense had their report of the stomach contents a couple of weeks ago. The state had a chance to know that the stomach contents were somehow going to be relevant. Otherwise, why would they have spent money to get that report? And then all of a sudden this last week we find out the toxicologist has done a new report. So that's probably going to be one of the things they're going to talk about in front of that jury about, wait a minute, you know, we were doing damage to you and now you do this. Should you trust what they're finding?
Anita, your thoughts on this new toxicology report, which again on its surface, that's bad for the defense.
Right. It does appear to be bad for the defense. And they're building a theory based upon the evidence that they have, the majority of which has all been provided to them by the prosecution. I mean, when I was a prosecutor, I did all the testing, everything, because it is a search for the truth. You want to know what all the tests are going to say, and that way you can anticipate a defense theory, because you're not entitled to know what the defense's theory is. So, you know, I'm surprised the prosecution didn't run all the tests. I was very surprised when we heard that the stomach contents weren't fully examined. That was surprising. But now the defense is built on the theory. The only thing they can do is attack that and say, see, the prosecution isn't about searching for the truth. They're picking and choosing what they want to use to prove their case, not show you everything, which is what they should be doing. That's kind of how I think the defense will have to play it.
No, you guys are doing a good job opening our eyes to what the defense will do. Again, it's going to be their side in a couple days. But until then, you know the prosecutors are going to pound it with their last witness, Dr. Stephen Schaefer, and he's going to tell us about, he's the one that they're going to use to go over this new testing with and to tell us that, no, it's not consistent with Michael Jackson taking 8 lorazepam tablets. And also, I'm sure we're going to find out whether or not it looks like somebody fast injected some propofol in I believe it's a bolus amount of 1 glob going through his system. That could be more bad news for the defense at the end of the day, right, BJ? Real quick.
It can, but remember, they're going to have their own witnesses. They're going to testify starting Wednesday, you know, going in, or Thursday probably more likely, to try to counteract. Just because the state witnesses sound good, it doesn't mean they're without fault and that someone else may sound better.
Got it. Okay, we're going to go to Los Angeles here in just a moment, get more on that breaking news, a new toxicology report that puts a dent in the defense's theory that Michael Jackson ingested 8 lorazepam tablets. Much more coming up. HLN, the police. BJ Bernstein, Anita K. Guys, want you to weigh in on this one. So at the end of the day, Anita, I'll start with you on this one. You could have a new toxicology report that says, no, 8 lorazepam tablets, not the way this went down. And also that this Stephen Schaefer, an anesthesiologist and pharmacologist, can say, no, there is no fast injection of propofol. That's not what I'm seeing here. How does the defense recover from that? Because we know for them that's not going to be end of story.
Right. It's going to be difficult because they were going down one path. So they're going to really have to point the fingers at the prosecution and say, hey, if they don't know what happened and you're getting this mid-game, they don't even know what happened, how can you jurors determine what happened? And if you can't figure out what happened and determine what Michael Jackson did or what Dr. Murray did, then you cannot convict Dr. Murray. I think that's the path they have to go on. They now have to put it all on the prosecution and blame them for not doing the tests or things like that and spin it in their favor.
Beth, reiterate for